Welcome to the Town of Littleton 2020 Year in Review. My name is Cindy Napoli, Chairperson of the Littleton Select Board. This time last year, we carried on with traditional holiday celebrations. Little did we know that within months, life as we knew it would change dramatically as COVID-19 would make its way to the United States. COVID-19 hit our community hard. Town officials were challenged by the outbreak at the Life Care Center, the closing of Town Hall, and our schools. We worried about the health, safety, and well-being of our employees and residents while ensuring the day-to-day operations of the town continued. I'm proud to say that Littleton was better prepared than most communities, thanks to the amazing team at LCTV. Mark, Judy, and Kirby helped transition staff and elected officials to a virtual platform, and we were able to operate with only minor interruptions. Residents faced their own challenges with school closings, loss of childcare, and adapting to working from home. Businesses struggled and found creative ways to operate. Takeout and drinks to go certainly helped, and a social media post about toilet paper or disinfectant wipes was a sure way to create an instant surge of customers. Masks became the latest fashion accessory. Hand sanitizer is now a necessity, and handshakes and hugs have been replaced with a wave from 6 feet away. Hair grew long and our patience grew short. The pandemic changed the way we interact, socialize, shop, learn, and communicate. But there was one thing it didn't change, and that is our willingness to step up and help one another. Littleton is known as a community that cares, and that was never more evident than in the year 2020. We looked out for one another, made sure we were fed, masked, and provided for. The children were entertained with drive-by birthday parties and the traveling Easter Bunny. The adults stayed entertained with fun ideas like the Sisterhood of the Traveling Wine. We have a new appreciation for our conservation trails and have rediscovered the simple things in life: fire pits, nature walks, and time spent at home. The year 2020 is one we will never forget, and although the pandemic is far from over, we felt it was important to memorialize the events of this past year with photographs and personal interviews. I would like to thank the residents for sharing their personal photographs and give special thanks to Mark Rory and LCTV for putting together this amazing video. So let's begin a look back at life in Littleton in the year 2020.
This is for those Littletonians watching in the year 2120. In order to better understand this program, let's take a look at the timetable of events in Massachusetts. On January 30th, the World Health Organization declared the coronavirus a public health crisis. In Littleton, life was unchanged or unfazed by this announcement. But on February 2nd, the first confirmed case of coronavirus was announced. On March 6th, 3 people tested positive after attending a Biogen meeting in Boston. On March 9th, the annual St. Patrick's Day Parade was canceled, and Harvard University moved their courses to online. The next day, March 10th, Governor Baker declared a state of emergency.
To help memorialize this past year, we interviewed some key figures in town who I believe that you will recognize. One of the questions that we asked was, what was the situation like in your job environment in the early stages of COVID during March or June?
In that time frame, we were really struggling to get PPE. The medicals, once the COVID cases started, they actually came in waves, sometimes 2, 3, 4 medicals at a time. Some of the ambulances, we would kind of stack up the medicals and just wait for the next one to become available. We were on Zoom calls daily with the Board of Health, with DPH, with MEMA, all on a regular basis. That summer actually settled down as everybody was able to get outside, open windows, and that helped a lot. That resulted in the numbers going down.
So it was surreal. I'd heard about the virus like most people, and I assumed this would get dealt with similar to like the H1N1 virus a few years ago. It was something to be concerned about, but it would get resolved without any real disruptions to school or anything else. And then the landscape started to change, and it looked like we might need to close school, but again, we all figured it would just be for a few weeks while things got figured out. Then we realized we're not going back, and that was a major shock. The enormity of the impact of that type of decision on our students really hit all of us on the school committee and in the school department. The teachers and staff had to scramble to put together work students could do at home, but it was total triage. There was very little we could do to mitigate the negative impact of losing all those school days back in the spring.
So in the early stages of COVID, I was still getting to learn the community and employees. So the months through March and June, I was meeting with people and learning more about the town, all while trying to do it remotely from home, which presented a lot of challenges in not only communicating with people and being able to connect with them personally, but then also challenges as far as just learning the roles of the position that I started. Coming from a different town, I hadn't been an assistant town administrator, and there was some challenges in trying to learn not only about the town and the organization, but also on some of the tasks that I should be doing.
Could you describe for us what the situation is like now?
As far as the current situation, we see ourselves in a better position as far as PPE goes. The numbers continue to go up rapidly with the COVID cases throughout town. But I would say that PPE-wise, we're in a good place, and what we're seeing now is that people have what some folks have referenced as COVID fatigue, and they just want this to be over. The vaccines are just starting to come out, so that's a positive thing. We'll see how that goes, but I think it's going to be a long winter as family and friends, people want to get together for the holidays, and that's really kind of a high risk for everybody, depending on if people aren't wearing their masks and aren't social distancing. But hopefully we'll all pull out of this stuff soon.
Well, it's better. It's not good in the sense that our students are still missing far too much in-person learning, but it's definitely a lot better than it was in the spring. Our admin staff and teachers worked hard all summer to prepare for remote and reduced in-person instruction. Our custodial staff were Herculean in their efforts to prepare the buildings to host in-person students, and the way our tech staff ramped up systems for remote instruction was awe-inspiring. So there's no question in my mind that the Littleton School District has outperformed compared to what many other districts are facing. And what we asked and are asking of our teachers and staff is entirely unfair. But to their everlasting credit, they've stepped up to support their students in the face of these unprecedented challenges.
So now we've been dealing with COVID for 8 months, and some of it is still remote. We have some people that are working remotely, and others that are here in the building. But that one of the things that we've been able to do is all through these 8 months maintain the operations of the town. I'm back to being assistant town administrator, a position that I first joined Littleton in, and it's great to have Anthony back as the town administrator and really start to be able to learn some of the things that when I joined Littleton over 8 months ago, that I can get back and get into learning more about that role.
What are some memories of the past 8 months that you are most proud of?
Over the past 8 months, I think one of the biggest things I'd have to say is how the guys in our station, everybody wore their PPE, continued to do decon for the amount of numbers that we actually transported with COVID. I'm really pleased that the guys in the station didn't get sick for the amount of exposure that we actually had. So that was a very positive thing for us, and just the guys being persistent. We're also, really appreciative of the members of the community who actually stepped up and just delivered PPE to us. That was very kind and very appreciative.
For me, holding an in-person graduation for seniors last summer was a big deal. It wasn't nearly enough to make up for what those seniors had lost in the spring, but it was more than a lot of towns were able to do, so I was proud to be a small part of that. I'm also proud that we've been able to provide as much in-person instruction as we have up to this point. Again, it's not nearly enough, but it's a lot more than many other communities have been able to do, and I feel it's been a big help in mitigating the negative impact the pandemic is having on our students. And I'm also proud of the way we conducted our school committee meetings this summer, and proud of our community for coming to those meetings and giving us vital feedback and input as we tried to figure out what to do in terms of reopening schools. Those meetings were real marathons, 4 or 5 hours, but I feel like we gave everyone ample opportunity to chime in and let us know what they wanted or didn't want. And even though we still had to make some hard decisions, it was a lot easier to do that knowing full well what the community was asking for.
Some of the memories that I have over the last 8 months have been really trying to overcome the challenge that COVID-19 has presented us, not only in trying to figure out how do you run a town meeting and all the logistics and making sure that you're doing it safely, but then also how do you bring back employees and working with departments to make sure that we put processes in place to take remote workers and bring them back and welcome them back into town hall in a manner that they feel safe. Also, trying to develop a plan for opening town hall back to the general public and maintaining operations. To think that we've gone through 2 town meetings, annual town meeting in June and then a special town meeting in October, which is how towns do all their important business. To be able to say with that we were able to work together and achieve that, I think that's something that I'm very proud of doing, but then also if it wasn't for the assistance of everyone else, I think it's something that all of the town employees here should be proud of.
What is your biggest takeaway from 2020?
Things that we took away from 2020, it was really, there was nothing that was normal in the whole year. Everything was modified. Everything that we did, how we interact with the public, there was just the lack of interaction with everybody, and the new normal is Zoom every day.
I have one good and one bad takeaway. The bad one for me is the abject failure of the federal and state government to support local communities facing these challenges. The lack of direction, the guidance, and most importantly, resources for things like testing and treatment is unfathomable to me. As citizens of a republic and a commonwealth, we have to hold the representatives we elected accountable and ensure that we never experience this type of collective failure again. But on a much more positive note, my other takeaway is being awed by the resiliency of our kids. As parents, we often obsess about every detail of everything our kids experience, and too often we forget just how tough and adaptable they really are. So even under the current circumstances with the mask wearing and a 6 feet of space and fewer kids in the building, I've been in the buildings, and the energy and joy they bring to school or to their online classrooms is palpable. I was at the high school early this fall in the late afternoon, and I saw kids playing soccer. The masks and other restrictions that they had to do while they were out there on the field didn't do anything to dampen their enthusiasm. And to me, it was obvious that they were happy to do what they normally do in the fall, which was be with their friends, playing outside. And I'm not trying to sugarcoat it, because what they've had to go through is going to impact them in a negative way for a long time. But seeing them back in school around the fields always reminds me that they're tougher than we give them credit for, and I feel like the kids are all right.
Some of the biggest takeaways of 2020, I think it's just to be flexible. There's a lot of things that are changing, not only coming from the state, but then depending on everyone's experiences here in Town Hall. It can really change from day to day, week to week, and without being flexible, I think things would have been extremely hard. And also, just to remember that some of the people you work with are the ones that you need to also go for support. Dealing with the challenges we've had, no one person can deal with all of those items, and that it's only through teamwork and working together and open communication that we can really achieve some of the things that we've been able to achieve. And I think that's one of the biggest takeaways that I've learned from this year is just how important everyone else is in town hall and in government and in life in general.
"2020 has most certainly been a challenging year for all of us. Together, we have navigated through these uncharted times of dealing with COVID-19. There are those that have lost jobs, lost a business, or even worse, lost a loved one to the coronavirus. But as true Americans, we met the challenge, made the necessary sacrifices to take on the virus to protect ourselves and our families. With the beginning stages of the vaccination started, we can finally see the light at the end of the tunnel. Although now is not the time to let our guard down. I urge all Littletonians to continue to take the necessary precautions in battling the virus by wearing a mask, washing your hands, and practicing social distancing. Hopefully, we can reflect on some part of 2020 in a positive light. For me, having the opportunity to return home to Littleton to take on the role as town administrator was certainly the high point of my year. I am forever grateful to the Select Board for granting me this opportunity. May you all have a joyful holiday season and a very happy and prosperous new year.